This is part two of a two-part interview with Bob Henderson. The interview was conducted on November 8th, 2008 in Vancouver, Washington.
Or,
Yes.
later said that that was the best class they've had in university. And if I was worried about what my colleagues thought, based on what the students who didn't buy in told people to get back to class, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And you gotta do and it's a simple activity. The simplest I do.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, I've already told such a story already. So I think I was searching for, the past, a story, a challenge. Shucks, just would have been Monday. It was Monday.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it's so omnipresent that I have trouble thinking about it. So it was when you told the story just there. So mine would be the ongoing justification of acceptance of the alternative.
Right.
And so an example would be I have to leave the room for student evaluations, of course. And the same day, a student came by and said, we were just talking about other things, so it wasn't this is what they were intending to talk about. He said, you would have got a kick out of the evaluation. He says, oh, yeah, I went out for coffee. What happened? So, well, the woman who was giving the evaluation was there, and we didn't care. She was hearing us. And none of the questions make any sense.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were joking about them.
Because they don't ask about anything about what you do.
Yeah, because they said just I don't know. So it was something like, so she was through her eyes. I heard this story. So they were all laughing at the evaluation, but still the evaluation will be taken seriously somewhere else. And they were saying, does the prof provide adequate course outline? And they were all laughing. Well, we don't really do a course outline because the course evolves as we go along with what we need.
Uh-huh.
Was it a detailed course outline? So no, it wasn't detailed at all. Because it's another paradigm, if you will. And then she did say, does the prof lecture? And they all laughed. Oh,
Yeah.
Bob doesn't lecture, really.
Right.
We interact and we have workshops and we workshop these things, if you will, and we interact in conversation and they didn't have to say all that stuff, but. So all these questions don't make
Didn't
sense.
make any sense.
So about 5 to 10 years ago, I knew all this, and I created another questionnaire.
Yeah.
So there was the required one,
Yeah.
and I wrote one that any of you could have used in experiential education, and you would have been happier using it. And I was planning to do a research study, and I was going to collect the data for 4 or 5 years, and I okayed it to do 2. To do one, that was the university required one, do I lecture as my detail, of course, outlines, et cetera, and the other one was my own, which were legitimate questions for an experiential educator. But they changed the university structure, so this research study never happened because they changed the course evaluations campus-wide. But it was yielding good results, but just not enough results over 2 years. And of course, it was showing that on the numbers, my evaluations were quite poor because they would go, no, he doesn't lecture, and then they would write, but boy, I never learned so much in my life. But the numbers are what you're evaluated on. So I said, gee whiz, this isn't working for me. I better do something about it or accept the consequences. So I couldn't. So it was an interesting story, and one of a story of many that are the sort of burden and the extra effort you have to put into your existence. And not just at university, it would be at camp settings, it would be true of anywhere. Yeah. I'll never forget a camp having me come in as a consultant to help with pre-camp staff so that they don't have happen what happened last year. And the kids off of the 50-day canoe trip, one group of 6 kids, and in that group, if I got this numbers right, 3 were affected in such a way that the parents complained to the camp. One kid wanted to drop out of school because they felt they were a self-learner, they could do a better job. Another camped in it, stayed in the tent in the backyard for at least a month through September and October in Toronto.
Wow.
And another kid never took off their trip clothes.
Wow.
They just washed them a lot. And the parents eventually said, this is not right. Called the camp. The camp said, you're right, we got problems. And of course, I was asked to come and solve the problem. I thought, those are good things.
Yes.
Misguided, but good things.
Right.
And I'm not going to squelch that stuff. I'm going to help the staff, through this staff training, realize that they're dealing with a more powerful medium than they may understand.
Yes.
But I'm not going to change the power of what that medium does,
Yeah.
but we can channel it so those kids maintain the school, become the president of the school, change the school climate, and are in school
Yes.
if they so choose. If they want to get out of school, okay, that's not my terrain, you know. But I'm not going to say that's good or bad, but it's misguided, I think.
Right.
But I am going to say we should understand, you camp director and you parents, that if you send your child on a 50-day canoe trip, some stuff is going to happen.
Right.
And we like to think in our field that it's a rite of passage. Technically, it's only a rite of passage for an adolescent if the culture that receives the child after the rite of passage wants and accepts the rite of passage. Anthropologically speaking, if they don't, it ain't no rite of passage.
That's a
So
very good point.
the youth
That's a
at
really
risk
good point.
that comes
Yeah.
back from Project DARE or your camp or facilities that we're
Right.
aware of, Santa Fe, come back changed.
Yes,
And
they
no
do.
one wants that change or acknowledges or accepts it. It ain't anthropologically a rite of passage.
Well,
You know, it hasn't changed since my first conference in Toronto in '81. I think it was in Toronto.
I was there.
Yeah.
That was one of my next ones. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, well,
I was,
Team
there
of it.
I was there the year after when they almost closed the doors too.
Was that it?
Toronto.
Maybe that was the one.
Toronto almost died.
yeah, Toronto was a problem conference, but
Yeah, that's what everybody was saying, but I was having a ball.
yeah. Well, I didn't know there were problems either. I
I didn't
enjoyed
know,
myself,
you
but-
know. I was
But
like, wow.
you know, since then, and every conference I've been able to get to since, it's the same every single time. I look at the program. There's 25 things in the same slot, and I want to go to 15 of them.
Right.
And I go, oh, not again. Why do I put myself through this
Yeah,
torture
that's
every year? And then I got friends I want to see, and then I
Yeah.
got... So, you know, it just doesn't change. It's just
Yeah.
the same year in, year out. I come frustrated as all get out.
Yeah.
It's the best frustration you could ever have.
Exactly.
All my curiosities are attended to. I can do a million things. I learn a pile. You know, I had to miss the end of Laurie's session to come here. You know, but no, there's always something going on. I find it incredibly stimulating. I go home with notes that whether I always have something I can
Yes.
work on, take with me, and even if I never have not, but if I. It's still about workshops for me, which is the heart of a conference. I still thrive on going to sessions and learning new stuff. And of course, as each year goes on, I make more and more friends who I go to see. And I'm proud to make a contribution, but I'm prouder to count all the people among the group here
Yes.
as my friends and colleagues, because without them, it's a pretty small pool of friends and colleagues. In a university setting where
Yes.
there's very little experiential education, it's not non-existent, but you know you could count them in sort of
Yeah.
two hands, and
Yes.
so it's nice to come to a place where you couldn't possibly count them all.
No, and I think that's true certainly for me and a lot of people. It's really our professional homes, you know, and it stays that way for.
Yeah.
I would also add that it's grown as a professional home for me. As a Canadian, the Canadian numbers have been swelling every year. So
Yes.
just an observation. And my knowledge base with others outside of my more immediate home setting and work terrain has also grown.
Think about all of the, you know, when we started out in the early 70s, probably all of us didn't know anything about what we were doing, and now you can look back and see all it, and I can look at all the things that I picked up from the association
Yes.
over the years,
Yes.
and go, oh man, you know, when I first started doing this, we were dangerous.
I remember writing this guy's.
Adventurous.
I remember writing this guy's. Okay, I'm going to put Tom Lindblade's number in my address book,
Yeah.
and I know that I can call him at some point.
Yeah.
And even if it's just for inspiration,
Yeah.
and it's not like I
Yeah.
called you weekly, Tom,
No.
but I had your number, and I knew you existed, and I knew you were in Africa, and you were managing a program that guided trips and was doing the most incredible out-tripping program that I still have ever heard of, and it was just inspiring for me to put your name in my address book and know I can call you. I have called you. I'll call you again.
Yeah.
So you know that collegial presence is huge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.